Hey, welcome to Dive Down. This is a series where I'll be covering commanders already covered in the 1-3 lesson videos, but a little more in depth. This go around, we have Adamaro, a mono red commander for 3 mana star. And before we just jump in here, let me go ahead and say this is going to be not a look into every single card, but it's going to be going over what I think is the main things, maybe kind of like attacking some topics that was already on the 1-3 lessons. Some cards I've added in since then, some cards that like I have my eyes out for, but I've not added in yet, and a few other things. Largely, it's just a casual discussion about it. So, here we go. Adamaro, First of Desire, 3 mana star. Spirit largely underwhelming, and again, I stand by the decision. When people see this commander, they're very scared of things like Nekuzar and things I would associate with Adamaro. But Adamaro people, it's always been one of two reactions when I play this commander. It's what? And then they would take the card, they'll look at it, hand it back like, oh, okay. Or they will just completely ignore me. They just assume, okay, whatever, Adamaro, I haven't heard that one before. Pfft, whatever, mono red. Okay, I guess you're doing mono red things. And then I'll kind of durdle a little bit, and then I'll get left alone. This is, and I'm not kidding, probably one of my highest win rate decks, because if people don't know what it does, they're not terrified of me. There'll be someone else at the table with like, Edgar Markov or Hidetsugu or some of these other like high priority targets. And I'm sitting over here on my ass. Sorry for the language. I'm sitting over here on my butt, not doing anything. And then I'll come in and just sweep up for the victory. Is that the best way to like say, oh, I win because everyone ignores me? Not really, but you got to consider like that is something to consider when playing Magic. Is if you're playing some high like targeted commanders, like a Voja. Where's Voja? Hopefully I get this up. Yeah, the stuff like Voja. People see his 5 mana, 5/5 that just shape a ward with this powerful effect. I wonder, are you going to target Voja? Or are you going to go after the guy playing Adamaro? You know what I mean? It's one of those situations. And I'm not saying that you get off scot-free if you're being a threat. That doesn't give you like, oh, I'm not doing anything right now. I mean, if I'm the threat, I'm the threat. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, a little off topic. Jumping right back into it. What is the game plan for Adamaro First of Desire? It's simple. We want to draw people cards. And what I really like about this strategy is you are drawing people cards and you are trying to kill them by drawing cards. But you're not really seeking to wheel or limit people playing cards all that much. Because one of the things I like is I like seeing people play out their stuff. And it creates so much chaos because people have all these resources. People are worried about other people deploying their resources. So, they're going to spend that to deal with them. Meanwhile, I'm sitting over here kind of like accumulating more and more card draw. Adamaro's getting bigger and bigger every turn. It's usually a 7/7, sometimes a 5/5 if I don't really have too much good card draw artifacts, but we'll get into more Adamaro synergies in a bit. So, we'll go over MDFCs when we go over our lands. I know they're over here. I wish they were next to the lands, but that's fine. So artifacts, we have a ton of artifacts in the deck. You can see they're kind of like scattered all around here, but these artifacts are just kind of more of the miscellaneous ones. They're not really associated with any of these other categories. They could be, but yeah, I'm digressing. So, Commander's Plate. Oh god, this card really jumped up in price. $35, almost $50. Really hope it gets a reprint soon. I actually opened this up in the original Commander Legends set. I guess the only time it was printed. Besides mystery boosters, but very great for mono-color commanders. That 1 mana equip commander for 3, it gets protection from everything but red, so dodging quite a few things. Great way to protect the commander and get in for even unblockable, because again, that protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity means it can't be blocked by unless it shares red. You know what I mean? Red. I think artifacts can still block them if I'm wrong. No, I'm right about that. And then a few other things. So very good card, but definitely could just put in another artifact to help you here. Maybe Lockstone Warhammer is a cheaper option if you want that life link. That'd be really cool. So don't worry about that. Crawl space. Okay, so crawl space is in here because if people do realize I'm the threat and don't really have any ways to defend myself, it's kind of like a little wall to say, hey, maybe I'm not as appetizing to attack. Leave me alone for a little bit. I think it's fine. I love crawl space in here. Fiend Lash. Fiend Lash is one of those cards that I think definitely should be covered in more detail. Fiend Lash is a 2 mana artifact for equipped for 3. So, if you played Fiend Lash, same turn, equip it for, the additional 3 for 5 mana. Now, equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has reach. Whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. Now, this means Adamaro, becomes a little bit better because we have ways to block flyers now. I think that's one of the things the deck can struggle with is you have those flyers. We are mono red. We don't really have flyers. We do have some. We have like a Baylor over here who has flying. Quite a few ways to, board wipe, but that's not the point. The reach is just a nice thing. The dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power to target player planeswalker. When we have Adamaro, and if our opponents have their own like reliquary tower for no maximum hand size, or maybe we tutored up an Anvil of Bogdarin, you can't, every player skips their discard phase, so people are just stacking cards. Fiend Lash, I have hit people face for, hold on, I think it was 26 damage face. Yeah, it was something crazy because I ended up so I had like a Fire Emancipation on the field. I remember this. Yeah, it was 21 that's what I remember. I think another one was 28. Either way, so Fire Emancipation was on the field, tripled that damage. I used Blasphemous Act. I dealt damage. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power target player planeswalker. And then that was brutal. I wiped the board. And a few other ways to deal things equal to its damage to things, like Chandra's Ignition. Getting a little off topic. Sorry, skipping ahead. Really excited about this deck list and really fun. So Fiend Lash is one of those things that like kind of is like a little wall. People don't want to attack into you. Maybe trade a high-powered creature or something they don't want and then eat shit. Swiftfoot Boots. It's Swiftfoot Boots, 2 mana, impact Swift Haste. I mean, can't go wrong. It's very nice. Wander Wonder. Okay, Wander Wonder is one of those hear me out cards. Definitely is a flex spot. Not very good, I'd say. 8 mana, roll d20 to each opponent. You may cast up to maybe, if you're unlucky, 1, but 2 spells off opponent's libraries. It has worked for me more than it has should have, and I think is a very Commander-esque funny card. You can easily replace this with like a hate piece or something else over here on the sideboard. Some Simulacrum could probably go in the deck. We're a bit low on lands. Rolling Vortex for that life gain, like an anti-life gain, is really nice. A few other things. So that was our artifacts. Next we have our categories, but these are our damage doublers / triplers. So starting with City on Fire, Convoke. If a source you control will deal damage to a permanent player, deal as triple, not bad. Deal damage to a player, deal as triple, not bad. And all these are one-sided. I didn't really like so we don't have a lot of ways of like blocking or dealing with creatures. And we can take a lot of damage very suddenly if people just decide to swing on us. So I'm not going to do like the other, everyone takes double damage or something. I'm good. And then finally, Soulfilm is Soulfilm Mayhem Dominus. Oh god, this card's now $21. I think I got this when it was like 5 to 10. Jesus. Hope they reprint this guy sometime soon. He's really fun. But this is a source we do non-combat damage. Plenty of non-combat damage in the deck. For instance, like that Fiend Lash thing I mentioned earlier. That's non-combat damage. So if you have Soulfilm, Emancipation, can just one-shot someone for wiping the board. Really funny stuff. Moving on, we have creatures. These creatures are, I would consider this maybe like a you pay almost. But this isn't the overall like killing your opponents for them having a lot of cards, which is Adamaro in itself. I'll go over Goblin Engineer in just a second. But Psychosis Crawler is you drawing cards. And, we are going to be drawing cards a lot, but I wouldn't consider that punishing my opponents for having a lot of cards, which I think is what Adamaro is mostly about. And that's what I like about Adamaro. Because everyone's drawing cards. Commander, people just like drawing cards, especially those blue players. Oh my goodness. I mean, don't get me started on them, I'm sure. I'm kidding. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a blue player myself, but very nice to have in the deck. It's one of the win conditions, I'd say. Besides, making your commander huge, I think, it's also matters about your hand. We do have a reliquary tower in the deck, so Psychosis Crawler can be huge. You can Fiend Lash it up. Very good card for the deck. 5 mana is a bit pricey, so if we don't really have anything out to draw cards, it's a little disappointing, but it is what it is. Goblin Engineer, kind of cracked, I'm not gonna lie. Search your library for artifact, put it in the graveyard, then shuffle when it enters, and then you pay 1 in a red, tap Goblin Engineer. Return target artifact with CMC 3 or less from graveyard to the battlefield by sacrificing an artifact. We have a ton of artifacts in the deck, and sometimes we don't. Let's say Zenith Chronicler is outlived its usefulness. We have we draw a mana rock late game like Arcane Signet. Maybe crawl space doesn't matter. Maybe there's no creatures going on. That's fine. We can sacrifice it to Goblin Engineer and recur a artifact from our graveyard. Now it has to be a CMC 3 or less. And could be the one we tutor up, right? Like, we could go tutor up. We can put, let's say, Scrolling Crawler at our graveyard, even though this is a creature, right? Artifact creature, Phyrexian Construct. It doesn't specify non-creature. It says return target artifact card with CMC 3 or less. So, some things we get back with Goblin Engineer are things like Howling Mine. Temple Bell is alright. Scrolling Crawler is really good. That's a new card that came out with the new Foundation set just recently. We'll go over that in a bit. Sculpting Steel, Sword of War and Peace, kind of cracked in this deck. That card sucks though. A few other things. So, I like it. Fits the deck really well. Moving on to our last kind of like miscellaneous-esque creature, Zerzoth. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you make a 1/1 Red Devil. When it dies, does 1 damage to any target. And then the last one is whenever one or more devils you control attack one or more players, you and those players each draw a card and then discard a card at random. Now we do have some card draw artifacts that draw cards on our opponent's turns, which won't trigger Zerzoth. So things like, Thought of Mythos at the beginning of your upkeep won't trigger Zerzoth, Howling Mine. But we do have some other ones, like Howling Golem. We can attack during our turn. Everyone draws a card. Boom, Zerzoth trigger. Make 3 devils. Out of the World Atlas, the Temple Bell. Probably Zenith Chronicler. A lot of our wheel effects we can do on our turn. It's very interesting. Zerzoth, I think, is a great include for the deck. Make those little chump blockers even. Surprisingly, a lot of utility with Zerzoth. Not really a card that I'm like, I'm going to win the game off this, but I'm not unhappy drawing. Moving on to ramp. Very basic stuff, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, Thought Vessels, so we have no maximum hand size. Our hand size does matter at times. Soul Ring, Liquid Metal Torque. Liquid Metal Torque is very nice, turning a non-land permanent to an artifact and then maybe blowing it up with a, where is it at? Vandal Blast, very fun. Could use a bit more artifact hate, I suppose, in the deck, but getting a little off topic here. Not looking for so much ramp. And while we're on the topic of ramp, I think ramp and lands kind of go hand in hand here. We're only running 34 lands. I count MDFCs as lands. Now, 34 lands is pretty low for a deck, especially a mono-colored deck with no green, and Limit Swords is a ramp. Now, why are we running only 34? Well, we're running card draw artifacts. So I assume, if we draw 2 or 3 lands and we hit one of our card draw artifacts or card draw selections, or even a ramp piece here, not ramp piece, sorry, tutor pieces, we're going to get those lands. And you don't want to overload on lands, because the only way I think we really do well with lands, if we do have a Valakut, Valakut's very nice for playing mountains, just bam, just deal damage to people with the, when there's a mountain enters, if you have at least 3 damage to target creature or player. When agreed, play those lands, turn them into card draw. Not bad. Card also has been going up in price, kind of crazy. They need to reprint some of these things. But overall, I've not had too much trouble hitting lands in this deck. So I think I'm sitting at 34 with 7 mana artifacts, and then the draw card artifacts is fine by me. If you want to change it, definitely some things get removed in exchange for more lands. Always more utility lands to add. We'll go over that in a second. Also, I have a story about my Nykthos, by the way. Yeah, that's a super expensive card. I don't usually add it to my monocolor decks, just because of the price alone is a doozy. But we'll go over that in a bit. Actually, no, we're talking about lands right now. We'll go over it now. The only reason this is in the deck is because I got extremely lucky and had a local card store. I found Nykthos in their bulk rares. I paid literally $1 for Nykthos in 2024. Very surprised about that. And was it in there on purpose? Yeah. It wasn't one of those things where it wasn't they put it in there. And I was like, oh shit. Really? Okay. Yeah, I'll pay $1 for Nykthos. That was awesome. And that wasn't an LGS. This was more of a comic store in a way. They just had magic on the side. They didn't really care about it. They just put cards in there occasionally. So, best deal I've ever gotten on a card is definitely my Nykthos. All right, that includes ramp. Now that we've covered ramp, some of our lands, we covered the total number of lands, not what the lands do, But when we get to lands in the future, we'll also go back and look at our MTFCs. So, enchantments. The enchantments here are a little silly. Bludgeon Brawl is in here as certainly a fun pick, I would say. You can definitely swap it out for a stacks piece if you'd like, but it reads 3 mana enchantment. Each non-creature, non-equipment artifact is an equipment with equip X, and equipped creature gets +X+0, where X is that artifact's CMC. Love equipping things to Adamaro, because Adamaro can just kill people out of nowhere with this. So these are non-creature artifacts, but I'm not... My favorite thing I think I've ever thought of is Adamaro was wielding Temple Bell. So it was like, let's say it was like, oh man, I don't think it was very high power. I think it was like a 4 or 5. We'll call it a 5/5 because I think it had 5 cards in hand. It equipped Temple Bell and a Soul Ring, and it killed someone because they didn't expect the commander damage. So just by equipping those guys, it had a +4 power for 9, and I whacked them with it because they swung out on me or an opponent, and they died for it. Very funny. We have a ton of non-creature artifacts in the deck, and it makes it fun. I think old cards like this that not many people would see becomes very interesting. And could we make this one-sided? Probably not, and that's what I like about it. It just makes the deck a little more interesting. You play this card, and people are suddenly like, "Oh shit!" They start looking at their non-creature artifacts. They start looking at their hands, and they're like, "Oh man, that'd be silly if I could throw this on my commander." And they love it. I love the reactions I get at the table with this. It's super fun. A little on the other side of the table, we have Stranglehold. A little bit rude and not nearly as fun as Bludgeon Brawl, but your opponents can't search libraries and no extra turns. Search libraries is a bit mean, but it stops mono green. If I'm keep looking up those lands and stuff for a little bit, and stops mono blue from just taking all those turns if need be. And one thing I really like about this deck is when you run cards like these, yes, sometimes they're a dead card. Maybe sometimes people just aren't doing that. I seriously doubt in a Commander game no one's searching libraries. I mean, well, Wayfarer's Bauble. Search library for a basic land card, shuts off Wayfarer's Bauble, for instance. Everyone has a little bit of those in their deck, whether you think about it or not. Now, what I say is I'm okay with this in the deck is because you're drawing yourself quite a bit of cards that, while it would be a dead card in hand, you can afford it. Moving on, we have some tutors here. Already covered in the 1-3 lessons, nothing crazy. It's just gamble and reckless handling. Just this reckless handling can only get artifacts, which is mostly the things we're tutoring for anyways. We're not really tutoring for much else, especially with gamble. I'm trying okay, well, I need to start getting my card draw going for the table, I'm tutoring for Fauna Mythos, Howling Mine, etc. If I need to, I guess I could tutor for removal, but that's very rare. Moving on, I would classify these as kind of hate pieces / stacks-ish kind of things going on. Before we get to the funny things, we're going to go over the kind of the meaner cards first, and that's these guys. Blood Moon, non-basic lands or mountains. My philosophy on Blood Moon is I will not play Blood Moon if it messes over only one person. And that person's especially, if they're not ahead, for instance, someone's over there on Esper and they're not doing so hot, and then the 2-color Celestia over there is doing pretty good. They have all these forests and plains. I'm not going to play Blood Moon because it'll just mess over one person. It makes the game not fun for them. And I think 2, if it does mess over 2 people, yeah, I'm slamming Blood Moon. Good luck, everyone. I'm going to get all my card draw back up. And then what's important about this card is not just because it does mess over those non-basic land decks, it also keeps the cards in their hand for Adamaro, because that's kind of what we care about with these stacks pieces is we're not playing them for shits and giggles. We're playing them so that way the cards stay in their hands so Adamaro keeps stay strong. And you absolutely could play a mono red stacks deck and just make everyone hate you. I didn't really want to go that way, but there are effects in here like that. For instance, Godpharaoh Statue, 6 mana, spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast, and then at your end step, every each one loses 1 life. That affect's a little so-so, but yeah, love that effect for us. We're a little annoying. We're not very annoying. Magus of the Moon, same thing as Blood Moon, just on a creature. So this one's a lot more answerable than Blood Moon, I'd say. A little more fair. Scytheclaw Raptor is not a stacks piece. You could see it as a stacks piece. I can think of one instance. Let me read the card first before I get into stories. 3 mana, 4/3. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, Cyclaw Raptor deals 4 damage to them. Okay, that hurts us too, right? You know, let's say an opponent's like doing something and we really need to interact with like a Chaos Warp. We need to remove it. Ow, we're going to eat that 4 damage. That's fine, but usually this is one-sided because I don't really care what you're doing. Go off, like have fun. But you know, the little more control-y deck, you're going to take a lot more damage. In recent memory, Scytheclaw Raptor was an MVP. Straight out amazing card in that game. I was doing some very strong stuff on my turn. I actually had City on Fire or something cast, so they were gonna take 12 damage if they did something on my turn. It would kill them instantly. Like they're sitting at like 10 life or something, and I start going off and I start doing strong things, and they're thinking about it, and they're like, I have a way to answer like the card you're doing, but if I do it, it's gonna kill me. And he's like, well, I don't want to get last. And I thought that was very funny because, you know, he could deal with it in the table, but then he would, you know, kill himself in the process because of Scytheclaw. So he let me do my thing. I ended up killing another player and it ended up killing him not too long after. But love this card in this deck. Oh my goodness. It's a good dino. All right. Solid Arbiter. Kind of like a crawl space situation going on. You know, no more than one creature can attack each combat. No more than one creature can block each combat. I have not really. This could be bad if someone's playing a Voltron commander, but you obviously don't play it if someone's playing a Voltron commander. Duh. I think this effect feels very one-sided for our deck because typically we're on the Voltron train. Like Adamaro, you know, with a Fiend Lash or like a Hexproof on it, and we're swinging into opponents. You know that commander damage stacks up fast, really fast, especially depending on the cards you have in your hand. And we have a few tricks to boost Adamaro's power as well. So I think it's a very nice card. All right, so moving on from the little unfun cards there, you know, some of the hate bearers. I stand by Cyclaw Raptor is a very fun card. Please use it. But, you know, the Blood Moon, the statue. We're going to go over to our card draw, spells, and artifacts. And then we're going to skip around here. We're going to go back to the removal spells a bit last year because we're going to go from our draw artifacts to, make them pay for having those cards in hand. Kicking things off the top of the list, Anvil of Bogdarin. Still inexpensive, like $31, $30. Super old card. If you can't, this is one of the few cards where, like, you know, I've gone over cards before in the deck list and they're like, oh, it's expensive. You could always use something else here. Or, you know, maybe I got a cheaper price, but Anvil of Bogdarin is one of those cards I highly suggest if you can afford it. It works amazing. Now, again, you can always proxy. Like, please, like, proxy this card. You know, $30 is, you know, not something people can be blowing on cardboard. But I really love this deck list so much that I went ahead and I dropped the money on it. Each player is going to skip his or her discard phase. And then during your draw phase, you're going to draw and discard an additional card. So this means you can be drawing 2 cards a turn and then choosing and discarding a card, not from those 2, but it could be from your hand. So, you know, pitching a land and stuff. Now, people's initial reaction to this is usually an eye roll. They're like, oh, I have to remember this. But then, like, 2 turns later, they're doing it naturally and they love it. They just love, like, getting that card selection. It's great. Like, playing a soul card, people are like, I have to remember that. No, now you have no maximum hand size. Does this fuel graveyard decks? Absolutely. I have not had the displeasure of using this in a graveyard deck so far, because so far I've killed them fast enough, or someone else was worried about them. So all good on that front. But moving into our other artifacts, we're gonna go quickly cover those classic artifact card draws that you've seen before in the past, so that we don't linger on them. You got Temple Bell, tap, each player draws a card. What else you got? Fauna Mythos, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, you can draw 2 additional cards. Horn of Greed, where every player plays a land, not enters, plays a land. Big difference there. That player draws a card. A Howling Mine, you'll draw 1 additional card as long as it's untapped. And yeah, that concludes kind of like the ones I don't really have to go too much in depth about. And when you start stacking these effects and people start drawing 4 cards a turn, that's when the ball gets rolling. That's what you want to see in this deck, because that means you yourself are drawing additional 4 or 5 cards a turn, right? And that's when you start getting all these effects with, like, oh, you're going to take damage equal to the cards in your hand, and it gets really juicy. So, Howling Golem, probably a card that would eventually get power crept or cut. attacks or blocks, each player draws a card. Sometimes I've had people swing 1/1s into it. I block, each player's going to draw a card, or they desperately need a land drop. Or you could attack with it yourself. Not bad. Not too strong either. Moving on. Humble Defector. Great politics card. I've only had one issue where I passed it around and they never really passed it back to me. And I was like, dude, you said you'd pass it back. So I passed it out like, hey, if I'll tap this, draw 2 cards. I'll give this to you, you give it back to me, and I'll give it back to someone else later. And if they don't like that, you don't have to do it. You can always chop block with it. It feels bad. And I one time had that happen. I was offering it to a player that I was like, hey, listen, I just played this Humble Defector. You're really going to swing into me before I can tap it? And he goes, well, he's like, yeah, I guess. And it's like, could I get it? And I was like, yeah, sure, you can get it. But I've had other people who just swing into me and I block Humble Defector. And now those other 2 players are mad at that guy because they didn't get to draw their cards. So they're going to start attacking him. It's really funny. Humble Defector, you get that first use out of it. You get to draw the 2 cards. Pass it over to someone. Super fun. Magus of the Wheel. 3 mana. Eventually, the next turn, you can tap for 1 in a red. Sacrifice it. Each player discards their hand, draw 7. One thing I've noticed in tables is they hate wheels. They hate getting a hand or they're thinking about their plays, and now everyone has to discard and draw 7. Not a whole lot of wheels in this deck since we're just looking to draw cards for people. Like Nekusar. Nekusar has a ton of wheels. Like blue has Windfall and a few other things. We don't do that as much, and that also garners a lot less hatred like it would in Nekusar. Moving on. Otherworld Atlas. It's a little simple, but I didn't cover it with the other ones because there's some extra text on there. 4 mana, tap, put a charge counter on Otherworld Atlas, and then later you can tap it. Each player draws a card for each charge counter on Otherworld Atlas. I like putting 2 counters on this if I have the time. Everyone's now drawing 2 additional cards each turn. Tap this at the beginning of the player in front of me's end step, so I get that card draw before my turn. Untaps on my turn. Maybe I can put another charge counter on it. Wait, see what's going on. I've had 4 charge counters on this before because I had like Howling Mine and then something else available. I think it was Fauna Mythos that game. And then eventually I was drawing people like 7 to 8 cards. It was a great time. Everyone's like trying to figure out what they're doing. Like who's the threat? Everyone has cards. Reforge the Soul. Unfortunately, it's another one of those wheel effects. I have drawn it for its miracle cost. Again, wheels are fine though, because if we don't have that maximum hand size clause from Anvil Bogdarin, and Adamaro is only a 7/7, so some people at 4 or 3, it's like, okay, and I have crap in my hand, I'm reforging the soul, I'm gonna get everyone a fresh 7. Some people love it, some people hate it. One player in their hand like, oh, please do it, I'll be your friend for it, go ahead and do it. And I was like, should I realize, like, okay, I'll do it, because they're playing a strong commander and I want that ally. A lot of more politics than you think play into this deck, and that's one of the reasons I love it so much. Scrolling Crawler. Oh man, Scrolling Crawler. This is one of the new cards from Foundations. I expect this card to jump up in price. It's already kind of like sitting at that it's kind of $2.50-ish range to $4. So at the beginning of your upkeep, each player will draw a card. Okay, yourself included, not bad. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. Ouch! With all of our other artifacts going on, this is so much better than Psychosis Crawler. I mean, is it really? I mean, everyone's going to lose that 1 life, but I feel like with them drawing cards for themselves, decks like to draw cards. Like, Tatiova, play a land, draw a card. Really good card, auto-include into Adamaro. It's not too expensive right now, so if you have a deck like this, obviously it goes into Nekusar and Cyrus, or some other decks like that. But really, pick it up. It's such a nice card. And then, unfortunately, a similar card to it that's also been out recently is kind of like Razorkin Needlehead. Ouch. This card is sitting at like the $5 to $6 range. On my website I go to, I use a lot of Cool Stuff Inc. $7, man, $7. And I'm kind of waiting for it to drop down in price. I don't know why it's so expensive right now. This card's definitely going to be added to the deck list when I get a chance. I actually covered this in a short. I was really excited for this card. Some things happened, life happened, I didn't pick it up when it was cheaper, and now I really regret it. Really regret it. So, while your Scrolling Crawlers are cheap, get it for your deck list. Alright, moving on. Shah of Narail. I covered this in 1-3 lessons. Pretty much a 4 mana 6/6, huge body with trample. And then each opponent may draw up to 3 cards. Very rarely are people denying that 3-card draw. The only time I can remember this is friends of mine who play in my pod and not the randoms that I would play with at LGS's. They know what my deck does, and they're like, I don't want to. That was the funniest thing, is I don't want to draw cards. They're like, stop drawing me cards. I know what your deck does. It's going to kill me. And I thought it was the funniest thing, because it sounds so like anti-commander. It's really goofy. And the other people are like, what are you talking about? You know, like, are you sure you can maybe do some damage? And he's like, nope. And that's where part of what's interesting about the deck is people want to dump their hands. They dump their hands as fast as possible. So Adamaro isn't, doing stuff. What happens if you dump your hand onto the board? It sounds, that's not rhetorical. It's more vulnerable to removal. It's more vulnerable to board wipes. Other players are going to see that you have all this threatening stuff and they're going to go after you. Meanwhile, you're sitting in there with all these cards in your hand just waiting for stuff to happen. It's such an interesting way to play the game. I love this deck. Temple Bill, all right, went over. Zenith Chronicler. Again, this is one of those cards I covered in the 1-3 lessons. When a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. Who is not playing multicolored spells? I mean, okay, obviously Adamaro's not. We're mono red, right? We can't be triggering Zenith Chronicler and drawing everyone a card but us, right? But very rarely are you going to be sitting at a table and Zenith Chronicler is not going to matter. Like, you're telling me like it's going to be a entire table of monocolored? Oh, good. No. People were up here trying to play like 3 colors stuff. So I'm expecting Zenith Chronicler to draw us a bunch of cards. And everyone too, except for that one player. Okay, moving on. That was, you desire, the ways to draw our opponent's cards, right? Next is you pay. Some you pay, this is the category of we are making our opponents pay for having cards in their hand or just drawing cards in general. Now, it's a lot of definitely cards in hand, because cards in hand applies to Adamaro. We don't really care about how many times they draw cards. I covered this in the 1-3 lessons. Won't harp too much on this, but that's just the idea of the deck, right? So we'll be going to this category a lot more in depth. Starting with Baylor. Baylor. If Adamaro wasn't the commander, Baylor most certainly would be. We have a 5-mana 5/5 flyer. It's alright body, but whenever it attacks or dies, very important dice trigger. By the way, if it gets exiled, that does suck, but whenever Baylor attacks or dies, choose one or more. Each mode must target a different player. Target opponent draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards at random. Doesn't really add cards to their hand and just makes it annoying on them. I think that mode is very mid. I don't think it's the greatest. I could be wrong about that, but I'm usually picking the other two. Target opponent sacrifices a non-token artifact. Ooh, this is brutal, especially if someone's relying on like a one particular strong artifact or so, on their field to do stuff for them. No, it's gone. Sacrifice it. Gets around indestructible. And then the last one is what we really care about. Baylor deals damage to target opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. And that right there is going to be a lot of effects in the deck. Number of cards in their hand. That's what we want people to have. So, eventually you're like, oh, it's going to deal. This card essentially reads, whatever it attacks, maybe. And it's target opponent. It's not the player it's attacking. I'll attack a Baylor. Okay, you're going to take 4 damage to your face. Okay, that's not too much. And that dice trigger does matter. I forgot who it was. They were using some strong commander. I'll shit on Atraxa because I hate Atraxa. We'll say it's Atraxa commander. It was not. But they were like, oh yeah, I'm going to kill the table next turn. And I'm sitting here looking at my board. I'm looking at them. They have like 9 cards in hand. I'm like, dude, I think you're dead. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude, you're dead. So I swing at Baylor. They have no flyers. They take 5. They take an additional 9 from the trigger. That's what? Math is hard. 14 damage so far. And then I wipe the board of Blasphemous Act. I have Blasphemous Act. Baylor dies. They take another 9 or something. And it's just so much burn. Like, even without the doublers or some of the other shenanigans, the burn can be very surprising. And that's one thing I want to discuss about the deck. Maybe I should have covered this earlier on, but you yourself are losing the game if your opponents only have 1 or 2 cards in hand. And is that a good thing if your opponents have no cards in their hand? I mean, yeah, kinda. You don't have much left, left to play. The stuff's on the field. But that's not the point. I think the spirit of this deck is you want to like have people play a bunch of things, and I think that's very fun. You don't want to limit people playing things. Like once a turn, yeah, I mean you could, but I mean, are you really playing Magic at that point? You're playing a stacks. I'm gonna take damage to your hand stack. That's not fun. Moving on. IBL Netsuke. Should it be in the deck? Probably not. It's kind of funny though. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 7 or more cards in hand, Ebony Owl Netsuke deals 4 damage to him or her. 7 or more cards, it's achievable. 4 damage again at the beginning of your turn. Okay, ow. That's gonna sting quite a bit. I think I just like this card. It's behind the deck. Not too good. Ember Wild Captain. Ember Wild Captain is so goated. I love Ember Wild Captain. Oh no, so we'll do a re-attack in a second. I just realized something, but we're gonna cover Ember Wild Captain first. 4 mana, 4/2. Okay, kind of not such a good body there, but when it enters the battlefield, you become Monarch. Great. We introduce the Monarchy. The beginning of the end step, if you have the Monarchy, so if you're attacked with a creature and aren't blocked, you become the Monarch. And at the beginning of your end step, you draw an additional card. Boom. Additional card draw added to the table, and now you're getting other people to attack you or attack each other. Super fun way to get that going. And I have played this card and let people attack me to become the Monarch. Like, hey, dude, you can have the Monarch. Take it. Like, I want you to draw cards. That's the goal of the deck. And even if they're like, oh, I don't want to attack you because of Ember Wild Captain's second effect here, which whenever an opponent attacks you while you're the Monarch, Ember Wild Captain deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand. Yeah, I've played this at times, and people just genuinely cannot attack me. They just don't want to eat the damage. It put them too far behind. But there are some people out there who are like, yeah, I want the Monarchy, dude. And they'll take it. And I'm like, okay, have fun. Pass it around. That's all I care about. Good luck. Great card. For the deck, might I add. Is it a good card in general? Probably not. Gaze of Adamaro. Card kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie. But it's so flavorful. How could I not add it in? It's a 4 mana instant. Deals damage equal to the number of cards in target player's hand to that player. Bam! 4 damage, zap! Like, I don't know why he has laser eyes. It's really silly here, but it's kind of cool seeing those, like, shrunken heads, over there. Like, and the same as art, shooting those lasers as well out of their mouths. Kind of goes hard. But, yeah. I have, all those doublers and stuff out, people drawing cards. Fits in well enough. It's a fun addition to the deck. Really goofy looking. Iron Maiden, 3 mana artifact, during each of your opponent's upkeeps, deals 1 damage to that player for each card more than 4 in his or her hand. 1 damage more than 4. So let's say your opponent has 6 or 7, right? Taking 3, that's not bad. It's a lot better than Ebony Owl. Probably explains the price increase there. But yeah, I've done this, and it just keeps ticking down. People don't notice that little life loss over time. It's like, you're going to draw these additional cards, untap, upkeep, draw. If they don't play those cards by the end of their turn, they're going to be taking more damage. So it's something to keep in mind that, like, as you draw people more and more cards, they're depending on if they're a ramp deck. Okay, that's scary because they're going to be playing a ton of more cards than all the others, but that also makes them a target. So you see how that kind of like plays into itself. People are going to see them with all these things on the field. Okay, I'm gonna board wipe you. I'm gonna deal with your stuff. Fine by me. No job for me. Corvap's Fury. For each player, choose friend or foe. And that's what I really like about this, because it has that, not mode on it, but, it has that option. So for each friend, they're going to discard all cards from their hand, then draws that many cards +1. So we can give them a wheel +1. Not bad if, if we want to make friends with someone. Be like, hey, I'll let you have this. Otherwise, 5 mana, deals damage to each foe, so each person we choose foe, equal to the number of cards in their hand. Perfect card for the deck. Love it. It's a little pricey for that effect. Molten Psyche. 3 mana. Each player is going to shuffle the cards from his or her hand into their library, so they're not discarding. That's, I think, is very important. You're shuffling your hand back into your library, and I think part of the reason people hate wheels so much, unless you're in that graveyard deck, is you're losing those cards, right? Like, oh, I won't get those back, No, they go back into your deck, so maybe it's a little less salty. But what's important about this card is Metalcraft. So if we control 3 or more artifacts, which, geez, I wonder if that's possible with our deck, with how many artifacts we're running. If we control 3 or more artifacts, Molten Psyche is going to deal damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards that player has drawn this turn. Ouch! Especially if we combine that with stuff like, we can have Temple Bell. Each player draws a card. They're drawing a card on, our turn when we cast it at sorcery speed. Otherworld Atlas on 3 or 4. Okay. Otherworld Atlas, that's 3 damage. Plus how many cards in their hand. This could be like 8 damage. Like 6 to 8 damage quite easily, not including, the higher numbers that this deck can pump out. Quite a lot for 3 mana. We get to shuffle our own cards back in and we get to redraw. Like, not bad. Not bad at all. Rune Flare Trap, super easy to include. 6 mana, really, really spicy for that mana cost. Not good for the effect. We're not going to read this part first. We'll read the bottom part, but it's going to deal damage to target player equals the number of cards in that player's hand. For 6 mana, well, that's not what we're casting it for. If an opponent drew 3 or more cards this turn, you may pay just 1 red than the 6 CMC. Easy to get. Always going to be pretty much cast for 1 red in the deck. Really nice to see. Just bam, And might I add, for all these, you see these burn effects, you have Molten Psyche, you have Gaze of Adamaro. We just went over the trap. We do have Reverberate and Twinferno. So we do have ways when you cast your next instant sorcery, copy it, and Reverberate to copy target instant sorcery. So we can just suddenly over 15 damage to people face to the table. Like, Group Slug is very real. Sculpting Steel. Easy. We can use it to copy. Very rarely are we copying our mana artifacts. I can't imagine why. Meant to cover it in Emberwild Captain. Jumping ahead a lot, I know. Coveted Jewel is one of those cards I wanted to cover back in Ramp. We'll cover it now because it does technically go into the you desire and you die kind of categories over here as well. Now, we'll cover why is it you die? Why are people paying for this? Get over to that in just a second. 6 mana artifact. Ouch. As a ramp piece, really? Is this ramp? I mean, sure, it could be. When this enters battlefield, we draw 3 cards. So this is 6 mana, draw 3, tap to add 3 mana of any one color. So already we're getting back 3 mana of red mana, by the way. So if we have a bunch of colorless lands, if we need that, bam, sink that into Coveted Jewel. We get 3 mana back, 3 extra cards. We have quite a lot of cards we can run out if we draw those cards, the 3 extra cards that we can pay for the 3 mana. So I would like to correct myself here. I said the Monarch, when a creature attacks you and isn't blocked, I was meant to speak about Coveted Jewel, because this is Coveted Jewel versus Monarchy. If a creature does combat damage to you, that player gets the Monarchy. My bad. I'll put a side note up there when I speak about it. Coveted Jewel is more important to differentiate here. It's whenever one of our creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of a Coveted Jewel. Untap it. So this is one of those cards that listen, I played this. Do you want it? Yeah, I'll let you hit me with your little dork. You're like a 2/3 or you're 2/2. Yep, here's Coveted Jewel. Untap it. Get 3 extra mana. 3 cards. And now everyone is eyeing that player. This card is the Monarchy on steroids. The Monarchy is nice. It's okay. But when you introduce 3 cards and 3 mana, people are killing each other for this thing. Really fun to use. And using Sculpting Steel, any copy of Artifact on the battlefield, now you have 2 Coveted Jewels going around. Really fun. Really fun. I highly suggest you give it a try sometime. Spiraling Embers. This is a bit different than Gaze of Adamaro. One's at sorcery speed, so it's a lot worse than the instant, but deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of cards in your hand. Now, this is a lot more controllable because it's the cards in your hand, but then again, we're wanting our opponents to have more cards than us in our hand, so it can kind of defeat the purpose, and I can see this getting replaced, but again, it's coming from that original Kamigawa block, so I thought it was pretty fitting. Sword of War and Peace. I did cover this in the 1-3 lessons quite a bit. We'll go over it again real quick here. This card sucks. This card does suck, unfortunately. I think it is one of the worst cycles of swords from the dual swords. But Sword of War and Peace is a 3 mana equip 2 artifact. It gets +2/+2 protection from red and white. So if you combine this in tandem with Commander's Plate, our commander has protection from all colors. Because we equip this, bam, now it has protection from red, that final color we needed. Now that's pretty good. That's pretty good on its own. And Whenever this deals combat damage to a player, Sword of War and Peace deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand. There it is again. That's what we're looking for. And you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. Not a lot of ways to gain life in mono red, believe it or not, but this is one of the ones in the deck that I think fits really well. I have gained so much life before using this card. Really punishing. Love it a lot. Really fun to use like the sword, because not many people have seen the sword. Not many people are using it, surprisingly. That's sarcasm. All right, next up. These next two are very spicy, so I'm really glad to go over these. Unquenchable Fury and Vicious Shadows, both enchantments, but this is an enchantment aura. And then look at that. This is from the Neon Dynasty. Return to Kamigawa, kind of in the future thing, but it still has that kind of Oni-esque feel, so it's still very flavorful. 3 mana, enchant creature. Now, you can enchant any creature. I recommend our commander, or a creature that we want to be attacking with. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, it deals X damage to the defending player, where X is the number of cards in their hand. More non-combat damage, and it doesn't even have to get through. We just attack with it. Bam! They're going to take that damage. And when Unquenchable Fury is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand. Wow. That has come up quite a few times. Like, Unquenchable Fury just keeps coming back. Like, you cannot stop me from swinging on you. I will play out one of my dorks, and you will take a ton of damage eventually. Really fun card. Also, you get that kind of reaction at the table, like, oh, what does that card do? And it's like, oh, shoot, wow, it's kind of like repeatable X damage to defending player. Vicious Shadows. One of the more expensive cards in the deck, 7 mana. 7 mana is a lot, and it's from the Shards of Alara. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may have Vicious Shadows deal damage to target player equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. God forbid people are running token decks. If people are running elves, if people are running zombies, and you Blasphemous Act and you kill, like, goodness, the entire board, so we'll say 20 creatures, this could just kill the table straight out. Because it's not just, notice you may have Vicious Shadows deal damage to target player equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. It doesn't specify that creature's controller, right? So let's say this person's being a threat. So that they have like a ton of creatures, but after we board wipe them, are they really a threat anymore after we deal with all like the tribal commander's creatures and they only have like a couple cards in hand? Or maybe they have a lot more cards in hand, but they're a tribal deck. We can deal with that. Let's say it's like this other person, they're more of a spell slinger and they're kind of being a pain, no one can attack them. Okay, you're gonna take like 4 times, oh geez, I could choose up to 20 times. Yeah, that's yeah, I think that's lethal. It could just wipe out the table, really. And again, once again, that's before we have any of our doublers out or anything. That can get crazy. And I don't mean to bring that up every time. It's just, I think that's a very funny thing to consider. And overall, that is the main game plan of the deck. It is a group hug deck. I will look at people in the face, in the eyes, stare into their soul. Yeah, I'm playing group hug. And my other friend will roll their eyes like, yeah, you need to tell them the entire thing. It's a group hug, group slug. Light stacks effects. Not enough, I think, that it really makes people angry. Really, really interesting deck, especially in like mono red, like, because you have like Nekusar and a bunch of other multicolored draw commanders. I mean, are you really drawing people, cards for shits and giggles? No, it's a little more control-y, especially the addition of blue. So we're not done with the deck yet, but we've covered quite a few things. We're going to go over some removal here, instance, and we'll cover our lands and MDFCs. And then after that, sideboard, and that'll be it. Let me know what y'all think so far. Maybe it's something I missed. Please let me know. All right, going over our instance. I did mention the instance briefly. But first we're going to go over Bolt Bend. Bolt Bend, 4 mana for an instant. Change the target of spell or ability of a single target. But if we control a creature power 4 or greater, it's going to cost 3 less to cast. So that means typically if someone has power 4 or greater. So if someone has 4 cards in their hand, Bolt Bend is 1 mana. Now that's just Adamaro. I'm referring to Adamaro. We do have some higher power creatures. Baylord. That's that's a 5/5 for goodness sake. We can also equip things. We have a +2/+0. We have a Commander's Blade. We have a Sword and War and Peace. we have quite a few ways to get creatures above that to make sure it's 1 mana. And this is the budget-friendly, I say budget-friendly, but it's jumped up to almost $4, wow, of a Deflecting Swat. Let me show you this one here. Deflecting Swat. Yeah, so Deflecting Swat is running about 30 to, wow, $50, and that's the variant there. If you control a commander, cast a spell without paying its mana cost, choose new targets for spell or ability. It's just, you pay 1 red. Same effect. I'm willing to pay that red. I think it's fair. We don't need Deflecting Swat in here. No reason to increase the price any more than it already has been. Already covered these two. Important thing about Reverberate, copy target instant sorcery spell. I have killed someone at the table. Copying a spell I've hit off Wand of Wonder. You may cast X instant sorcery spells from among them without. It was a Sorin's Thirst, I think. Hold on. Where you at, Sorin? Lots of thirst in this game. I didn't realize. No, it wasn't Sorin's Thirst. It was Vengeance. My bad. I'm ratting myself out on how bad I am at spelling the autocorrect. Yeah, okay, ignore that. Where is Sorin's Vengeance? Yeah, Sorin's Vengeance. I hit Sorin's Vengeance off their deck. Deals damage to target player. You gain 10 life. I reverberated it. Because I didn't cast the spell for 7 mana. I casted it for 4 by rolling it. Reverberated, deal 20, gain 20. Is that really gonna happen? Is that what I expected to do by Reverberates? No, it's just a funny thing I wanted to mention. Just some extra funny things you could do off Reverberate. You could Reverberate your Wand of Wonder. Very Timmy thing to talk about. Sorry. Twin Inferno. Twin Inferno, kind of reverberation on your spells, but keep in mind it's your next instant sorcery. Like Reverberate is, you copy it after it's on the stack. This you have to cast before you cast the spell. I have messed up Twin Infernos before. I suspect some people have as well. Just something to point out for you. And you do have that mode. Target creature control gains double strike. Yeah, Adamaro can swing for lethal on people with this out of nowhere. Really fun. All right. Removal. Blasphemous Act. Auto include. Burn down the house. I hate planeswalkers. I'm including burn down the house. Something else can go here. Don't worry about it. Chandra's Ignition. Chandra's Ignition is very nice for this deck. We want Adamaro. The whole idea of the deck is we want Adamaro to grow, right? Or we want to be drawing people cards. So Adamaro is a pretty big piece. And even that, we do have other, I've done Sultham before. 5/4 right here. Not including, by the way, I forgot to mention, it can discard 2 cards, put an indestructible counter on it. So now I have an indestructible non-combat damage doubler dealer that we use Chandra's Ignition on. Okay, now everyone's gonna take 10. It's gonna deal 10 damage to everything. Ouch. That's something. And then you can swing with Sultham. Sorry, I'm gonna get too far into it. It's fun. Chaos Warp. Classic Chaos Warp. Probably don't need to go into that. Delayed Blast Fireball. Oh man, it's sitting at $10 now. But this is a great instant speed board wipe in red. You don't see a lot of those, but for 3 mana at instant speed, deals 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. The spell was cast from exile, i.e. foretell. You can foretell this for 2, then cast it for 6 later. It deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control instead. Really easy way to sneak in a board wipe on people after they play out all their stuff. You're not expecting, nowadays I think you are, the players who play the game a lot, they are expecting Delayed Blast Fireball. Fateful Showdown deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of cards in your hand. Discard all the cards in your hand, draw that many cards. It's a nice way for us to okay, my hand's kind of looking like garbage. Okay, I'm going to remove this problematic creature. Bam, you're gone. And now I'm going to draw a bunch of cards. Nice. Fits in really well. 4 mana is a lot though. It is not a Scroll Thief deck without some counter spells. I used to have Red Elemental Blast in here. I think that was a little overkill. So instead I have Pyroblast. It's pretty much the same thing, but choose one. Counter target spell if it's blue. Destroy target permanent if it's blue. There's a lot of blue being played in EDH. If this card is a dead card, I'm a little surprised, and it does happen from time to time. But even then, really nice card to have for that 1 red. Default Trickery. Yikes, $7 now. I got this one as 4, I think, but counter target spell, choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. And this is essentially just they mill that many cards and then they exile. It's like a Chaos Warp for a counter spell in a way. Very nice, trying to stop your opponents. Very rarely you're gonna be using this to counter things. You could counter a commander if you're worried about it, but you're more or less countering game-ending things. And they will usually get something worse off the top. Vandal Blast. Destroy target artifact you don't control or overload it for 5. Classic mono red card again. Probably don't need to go over into too much. Not bad. And with that, we are now going to go over our lands. We do have some more artifact recursion. Buried Ruin. We can sacrifice this for 2. Turn target artifact card from our graveyard to our hand. Nice. Forgotten Cave. Some cycling going on. Maybe if we don't need this land, pay 1 red. Get rid of it. Bikokuro. Just more ways to draw people cards. Don't mind me. Mountains. Here's Myriad Landscape. If you're not running green, I recommend Myriad Landscape in your deck list. Nykthos. I spoke to Nykthos already. It would not be in this deck list unless I got that. I got very lucky with it. Reliquary Tower. We don't mind having a maximum hand size, right? Like, it's our opponents that don't want maximum hand size. So having a Reliquary Tower for ourselves does make a bit of sense, especially if we want to hold some of these punishing effects for when we can draw people a lot of cards. Rogue's Passage. Classic for if you're trying to kill people with like commander damage or something like that. Fits well enough into the deck. Mycosynth Gardens. We can turn into another one of our artifacts. It's not token artifact you control, not non-creature, so we can turn this into one of our creatures. But keep in mind, we do have a God Pharaoh statue. That is a legendary artifact. Pay attention to that. You don't want to be doing that. But plenty of things you can copy with Mycosynth Gardens late game if you're wanting to keep drawing people those cards. Valakut. Valakut was an expensive decision, I won't lie. So really, this one can be cycled out, but I have secured lethal with it before, and even then, just 3 damage to target creature or player. I wish this was reprinted already, but again, you can proxy cards that are expensive, and I now play online for Commander too, so some of these price tags don't affect me as much. I just like keeping it in mind. Now, do I own this in paper? I do own this in paper. Again, I'm digressing, but that 3 damage to a creature or player, sometimes you're not going to be wanting to deal the 3 damage to players. It's not the best, but you can be pinging off smaller creatures and commanders with this. Very good. Very good. Like a lightning bolt off of a mountain. Yeah, there is a reason why it's like $20. War Room. Just ways for us to draw cards for ourselves. Threw it in here. I had it in just kind of had this card. I was like, yeah, 3 mana, pay 1 life to draw a card. Okay, maybe if we're stuck on something, we need a bit more extra help with that. Why not? MDFCs. Kazul's Fury. I have killed up Kazul's Fury. It is hilarious. So, on this side is a tapped red. Not too good, but 3 mana, instant speed. As additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. It deals damage equal to sacrifices creature power to any target. One of my opponents he pieced it together. He's like, okay, this guy's a problem, Adamaro was like, oh goodness, I think he was like a 15-15 or something crazy. And they're like, okay. And he was trying to win the game. He would have won the game on the spot, 100%. So he goes like, okay, first I'm gonna kill your commander. And he points, I don't know, we'll just say Mortify at it. I'm like, okay, in response, 3 mana, Kazul's Fury, you take 15 damage to your face and you die. He's like, shit! It's like, I didn't want that to happen. I was like, I didn't want to kill you, dude. Like, I just want to draw people cards, but you forced my hand. Blame them for you killing them somehow. I'm kidding, of course, but it was a very good game. Shatter Skull Smashing. Red X. It does X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures or planeswalkers. It hits planeswalkers. Very important to remember. If it's 6 or more, it deals twice X damage as you choose among them instead. Since do like 12, a ton of damage if you just decide to sink all your mana into it. Can deal some things. And the good news is this: you can pay 3 life for this. It'll enter the battlefield untapped if you really need that untapped red source. Sundering Eruption, 3 mana sorcery from the new Modern Horizons 3 set, or newer Modern Horizons 3. I'm not sure how new it is. I think it's a couple months old at this point. But you get a short target land in this. Let's search for a basic, but on the battlefield, creatures without flying can't block this turn. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that definitely comes up. I've not had the chance to use this yet, but I added it in. And the other side has that same thing like Shatter Skull Smashing. We can pay 3 and it enters untapped. So it's essentially in a way like a free spell. And just you love to see it. You love to see it. Okay, that covers the deck. Overall, the deck list, it plays like I wouldn't be mad when you lose with this deck because, again, you're doing that very silly thing of trying to draw people cards, right? And when I sit down, I'm expecting to draw people a lot of cards, and I'm not really trying to win. I'm trying to have a good time. I want to see people overperform. I want to see people just pop off. But if I could sneak in that win, which happens quite often for this deck, I'm not going to be upset. I think it's just fun. Now, we're not concluded yet. I'm going to go over some cards in the sideboard over here and some cards that I did cut. Some ones that you might want to add in yourself. So, where are we getting with these artifacts up here? These guys are stacks pieces. Activated abilities of creatures can't be activated. Oh my goodness. You're starting to add in, you're starting to go down that more unfun path that Adamaro can do, and I think would be very strong for adding all these stacks pieces in. Not for me. I think Dancing Spirit could be considered to be added, considering later in the game everyone's drawing those cards, Maybe. Homeward Path. When this card gets reprinted, I will be adding it, but until then, I'm not going to be adding it for $15. But it's just one way to stop people from stealing stuff. Theft is getting to be more and a more popular archetype for the game, so having a Homeward Path would really mess with people. For instance, I think the new Gonti is pretty brutal with that. Let me check that out real quick. There you are. Sultai, all very popular colors. One or more creatures control deal combat to a player. Look at the top card of that player's library, exile it face down. You get to cast it. Wow, that's a pain in the butt. So now we don't really care about our creatures all that much, but if Adamaro gets stolen, oh no, that's really bad. I don't want to remove my own creatures, so Homeward Path is just a nice little thing. I used to have Kedis in the deck. Commander deals damage to combat damage to opponent. It deals damage to each other opponent. I wasn't connecting all that much of Adamaro at times when I had Kedis down because people were more scared of Adamaro, and then it just wasn't working. And it leans a little too heavy into the Voltron side of things, where that's more of a sub theme for the deck, so I took it out. Razor Needlehead, I definitely want to add. Oh goodness, I think I'll be happy if it drops a couple more dollars, and then I'm gonna go ahead and buy it. I highly recommend Razor Needlehead. Roiling Vortex. Again, one of those cards sitting at $5, but it's such a nice effect. I'm definitely gonna try and add this when I get the chance, but big game each player's upkeep, deals more damage to them, whatever. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, Roiling Vortex deals 5 damage to that player. Nice, because we are wanting to punish people for not casting cards from their hand, which is typically stuff like Cascade. This will punish like those Cascade decks, or occasionally casting from a graveyard for free or something. Love to see it. And just for 1 red, your opponents can't gain life this turn. Shuts off life gain. It does a whole lot. And it's each player's upkeep, right? It does 1 damage to them. Okay, well, if we use one of our non-symmetrical doublers or triplers again, right? They take 3 damage instead, while we're taking 1, so it's an asymmetrical race. Kind of changing the nature of the card, right? Really nice. Scavenger Grounds. I could see adding Scavenger Grounds. I probably should. When I get another one, or if I have one lying around, I'll probably switch out a mountain for it. So, stop that graveyard decks from taking advantage of our Anvil of Bogdaran, which is one of those cards we want to have on the field a lot. Shadowspear. Shadowspear would really nice for the deck, especially on Adamaro. Get that trample and lifelink, sitting at an expensive $25. If you're proxying, you don't have that issue, go ahead and slot it in, take out something for it. Slump Simulacrum. Overall, just a good card, especially in non-green. We have Buried Ruin to recur it, but we don't have that much artifact recursion. I think this is more of a cut card, but I would add this. Tip of Mayhem from not bad, 3-mana instant. And this one I'm debating about adding. I'm still on the fence about it, but choose target instant sorcery spell. Each opponent may copy that spell and choose new targets for the copy they control. And we get to copy that spell 1 plus additional time for each opponent who copied the spell this way. I was thinking about doing some of our spells our cyclers, not cyclers, but our, sorry, I'm blanking. Wheels, or our deals damage to cards in their hand spells, but we don't want to be, because they're just going to choose us, and then we're going to have to choose them. I feel like they would hit us over, each other, so I don't think I would want to be hit with my own spells. Like, okay, let's say Oh, they're all three gonna copy it. That means I get 3 more. Okay, you know, I get to point it at them, but now I'm gonna take what 721 damage from all of them. Yikes! No thanks. I'll think about that. Cut cards. These are cards I've had in the deck, or cards that I think I was going to use and I didn't use. By force, we are running Vandal Blast. No reason to destroy X target artifacts. We're fine. Clockwork Fox. When it leaves the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and each opponent draws a card. A little asymmetrical in that effect, but it wasn't as good, I think, to me as Howling Golem. No reason to be here. Dragon Mage, I actually did just cut for Scrolling Crawler. Over here, remember this guy from Foundations. Dragon Mage, just 7 mana, having to connect with it, and if people don't want to wheel, they're going to kill it. Which is nice, we eat a removal spell, but we don't want to be eating a removal spell for 7 mana before we do anything. Not worth it, in my opinion. Fire Diamond, we cut for a land. We did used to run 33 lands, and then 8 mana artifacts, which was a little more than bold. I think it was a dumb decision, but we're running a bit more. Loso Golem. So we were doing Planes Chase one time, and everyone, it was like an 8-player Planes Chase game. It was insane, and I forgot what plane it was, but essentially everyone got their own copy of Lodestone Golem. 8 players had Lodestone Golem, so non-artifact spells cost 8 more to cast. Was the funniest thing. I think the card peaked then for me, so I was like, okay, I want to cut back down on some of these tax effects, so I took it out. It did its job for me for the rest of my life, I think. I don't want to see it again. Soul's Fire. Target creature control deals damage equal to the power of any target. Okay, you know, that's not bad. I can actually see Soul's Fire being put in instead of Spiraling Embers. Actually, hold on a second. I think that's what I was considering, and I just totally... It is, we'll see about it, but I would recommend exchanging Soul's Fire for Spiraling Embers, because that's an instant speed. Creature you control deals damage equal to its power to any target, which is essentially another... Oh yeah, we're definitely doing that. We're going to take out... Get this in real time. We're going to cut Spiraling Embers. Boop. For Soul's Fire. And the reason is because we're going to give it a go. I think it is generally better because it has that 3 mana instant speed, not 4 mana sorcery speed, which I really don't like. And we do have a Psychosis Crawler it can work on. We have Adamaro, and we have a bunch of ways of pumping up their power. Because its power type is equal to the number of cards in the hand of the opponent with the most cards in hand, which is what we're doing from the deck. So it's going to have a high power. It essentially reads the same thing as Repair Trap deals damage to target player and the number of cards in that player's hand. So I think I was toying about that idea. Silly me. It's in there now. My bad. I think the flavor for Spiraling Embers just isn't there anymore. It's just, I've had it too many times in my hand and it felt really bad about casting. That being said, now that I have Soul's Fire in the deck, I will speak this about the card. Target creature control deals damage equal to its power to any target. Someone could remove this in response. That's why I think I was really considering not adding it. So just be careful that someone's going to point like a removal spell at your commander or bounce your commander. Heads up. Immortal Sun. I hate Planeswalkers. I don't like them. They're a pain in my ass. Are they really good in Commander? No, not really, because there's 3 other players. I hate Planeswalkers, and let me specify that. I hate Planeswalker decks. Planeswalker decks and getting obliterated. Let me show you Obliterate real quick if you don't know about this fun little card. Okay, I'm typing. I'm gonna type. In my defense, I'm typing at an awkward angle because I have my mic in front of me. Anyways, Obliterate. It cannot be countered. To me, that is one of the most heinous texts I have ever seen in my entire life. You cannot interact with this card unless you bounce or return a target spell to your hand. I hate it. I despise it. 8 mana, is it a lot? Yes, but in more casual commander games, you're going to be getting to 8 mana. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. They cannot be regenerated. Planeswalker decks that I've seen run this, and I know it's a card. You run a lot of board wipes typically in Planeswalker decks. It's not fun. It's quite a bit of a tedious thing to fight against. You make an enemy yourself at the table. And one time, I've had Obliterate casted on me by the Planeswalker deck that was losing. They didn't even have a Planeswalker deck on the field. And they just did it because they were behind. And they just reset the game 30 minutes in. And I was like, dude, really? And like, having the counter spell up, it doesn't matter. Can't be countered, like, holy crap. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I want Immortal Sun. And I realized I was being a bit too much of a hater. A bit too much of a hater on Planeswalkers. That doesn't happen too often. And some Planeswalker decks are a bit more, I wouldn't say honorable, but honorable than that. So, didn't make the cut. Could potentially make the cut if you're fighting a lot of Planeswalkers, right? Torbrand. If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that many damage +2. Torbrand could make the deck, but at the same time, we have a lot of non-red sources. Funny enough, for non-combat damage, we have like we have Iron Maiden, we have Sword and War and Peace is a big one. That's okay, a little less so. That's just more in there as like a joke. But I saw that and it's like, it's okay, it's 2 additional damage. It's not bad, but people see Torbrand and they kill that thing immediately. Torbrand doesn't last for me, and I don't like the 4 red. I'll consider it again when I get the chance, but not for me. Viashino Heretic. So if you're playing a red deck, I think this is a really cool card. Shout out to EDH Deck Building. So he does a channel. And I've seen quite a lot of his videos. I've seen so many of them at this point. I don't even know anymore. But this is one of the cards he covered in like his, I think it was underplayed Commander or like forgotten about Commander card set. But this was one of the cards there. I tried it out. Not bad. Like, I thought it was pretty good, but I still cut it because I'm not really looking to destroy people's things. It's not my job to answer them. It's my job to fuel them. So I could see this going into more of a traditional mono red deck list, right? Okay, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. 3 mana, 1/3. Summon Viashino. So you can tell it's an old card. But it says summon, the creature on it. Summon elf or whatever. You pay 1 and a red. Tap, destroy target artifact. Viashino Heretic deals to that... That's so awkward to read. Viashino Heretic deals to that artifact's controller damage equal to the artifact's total casting cost. Cool. So you get repeatable artifact removal and they take damage, non-combat damage. I love specifying that. I've probably been doing it too much as video. I'm sorry, but taking the shit out of it. It's something to keep note of. To the artifact's total casting cost. Okay, this is another way to burn people out. And it's one of those cards I can see myself re-adding it over time. Like if I'm like, okay, maybe God Pharaoh statue is getting a bit old, or I can't cast it, or people just really hate me for it. Yeah, I'll swap it out with something, or maybe Stranglehold for Viashino again. But I find late game, or if you draw this card kind of later in the game, blowing up a Soul Ring already did its damage. They're gonna take 1 damage. Sometimes it doesn't feel good. On the flip side of things, should people playing expensive things like what is it, Portal to Phyrexia? Where you at, bud? It's a newer card. Portal to Phyrexia. This guy here, pay 9 mana, enters each one sacrifice to the creature at the beginning of their upkeep. Wow, a very, very scary effect. Okay, I'm gonna play Viashino. I've had Viashino on the field possibly. It doesn't have haste. Get that in mind. So you gotta wait a turn, but destroy it. They're gonna take 9 damage to their face. Lastly, this is a card that I was running, is you find some prisoners. Destroy target artifact, a Berate effect here, but instead of 3 damage, you get to exile the top 3 cards of target's opponent's library, choose one of them, you get to cast that card. And then I played it and I was like, okay, well, I already have Theft in quite a bit of my other decks. And I was like, why on earth would, I feel like the Theft theme in here doesn't fit as well. It's funny, sure, but it just didn't sit right with me, Over here, we have quite a few other cards. I have tried some of these cards, but some of them, again, weren't for me. Like Flame Blitz, in here for those Planeswalkers. You can just cycle it, too. Dockside was banned, so I don't have that Dockside. Bloodletting's a little, too one-sided. But yeah, some of these other cards I thought were interesting. Maybe take a peek yourself, like War's Toll. I think War's Toll is very interesting against those people playing on your turn. Last one I'll cover here is the last one for the deck. Whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, an opponent, by the way, tap all lands that player controls. Ouch! All at once, so this forces them to tap all their stuff. So like I said, they play the commander in their main phase. Alright, you're done with your mana unless you can play more stuff during your main phase. As you skip phases, you're going to lose that mana. You don't get that for your entire turn. And if a creature an opponent controls attacks, all creatures that opponent controls attacks if able. It does benefit those aggro decks, but people don't want to be swinging with like some of their value creatures, right? So I can see this being added in, and eventually. All right, I think that just about does it. I'm sure there's a lot more other things that I meant to cover that I might have forgotten. Let's see if there's any re-attacks. I don't think so. All right, well, this was another dive down. Second dive down the series. The first one was on my Blink Umbris EDH video. So if you like this content, go ahead and give that one a watch through. The audio on that one I think was a bit quieter. Hopefully I've got that sorted out by now. But other than that, I'll see you next time.